Hi there, fourth grade students. We are going to be going over the third writing benchmark for the fourth grade as we prepare for the STAR writing test on March 28th. Hope you're counting down the days. It's coming up quick. A couple of bits of advice and advice to parents. Students have been advised often, regularly, frequently to do this test in a certain way. The first thing they're going to see when they open up this test on March 28th is the writing prompt. It's going to look something like this. I'll try and get a little clip for you guys, just a visual to put in the middle there. But on this prompt, it's going to say something to read about, think about, write about. The number one thing they need to focus on, the number one thing you students need to focus on is where it says write about. Now, our prompt for the third writing benchmark, which was an old STAR test, so most likely going to be similar when you do the test on March 28th. This prompt was write about one reason you like being in the fourth grade. Tell what you like and explain why you like it. Now, if you took this prompt and you read it to mean, let me write about all the things I like about fourth grade, wrong. The prompt is essentially one question. If you don't answer it correctly, you have messed up completely. If you write an amazing essay, but you fail to write about one thing, when it says write about one reason you like being in the fourth grade, you better write about one reason. People have made the mistake of writing about the top 3 things they like because they're used to writing about 3 reasons for everything they're writing about. They're going to try and trick you. They know about how we teach. They're going to try and trick you. The way to avoid being tricked, read that prompt, come back to it 1,000,000 times if you have to. That's an exaggeration. I'd say at least 3 times. Come back to this prompt whenever you're not sure about what to do. I'm stuck. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to write. Did you read the prompt? Reread the prompt. And don't do that thing where when you start to write, you try and shortcut and write just a little bit about, oh, write favorite thing, fourth grade. No. Every time you write about one reason you like being in the fourth grade, tell what you like and explain why you like it. It may take some time, but it's worth it, and it's going to help your grade. So that's the first thing that they're going to see, first thing you're going to see. It's not the first thing you're going to do, because 75% of your grade on this test comes from the 5 passages. Now, this is my copy. I'm going to be kind of looking at this from the benchmark as I worked on it while you guys were taking it, that third benchmark. It's going to look something like this. So it's going to open up, and you're going to see the write about portion. You're going to see the prompt. You're not going to start with the essay, though. You're going to start with what makes up 75% of your grade, which is the revising and editing section. The revising and editing section for this benchmark started with now or never. Now, I've already done this one, so I've already attacked and answered my questions. But for the sake of review, you should, at this point, if you're going through it on your own copy, you should know, okay, what should I do first? First, you should have attacked the questions, underlining what's important, so you can be thinking about it as you read. Then we're going to read. Then we're going to answer questions. So I'm going to read to y'all now. Please be reading along if you're at home or in class. Whenever someone's reading, you read along. So we're on now or never. Directions say, read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. Then fill in the answer on your answer document. So I'm going to go ahead and read right now. Now or never. Jared felt dizzy as he looked over the cliff. The ground seemed to be a long way down. His camp counselor, Andrea, smiled up at him. She gave Jared a thumbs up. Jared gulped. He still wasn't sure he could do this. All week at camp, Jared had eyed the tall cliff. He had seen other campers rappelling down the side of it. It looked so cool, but so scary at the same time. Jared wanted to do it, and it was to rappel. Now Jared was hooked up to a rope by a complicated mass of straps. He was at the top of the cliff with him, saying something about how strong the rope was. He explained that Jared didn't need to be afraid because the rope and straps would hold an elephant. Nice to know, Jared said. At the bottom of the cliff, Andrea was also connected to the rope. It was time. Now or never, Jared thought. Keeping his eyes on the counselor at the top, he slowly leaned back. He felt the strong, straight rope in his hands. Jared gripped it tightly and leaned out as far as he could stretch. Step, step, step. His feet took turns creeping down the side of the cliff. He was doing it. Jared was actually rappelling. He made his way steadily down. A grin began to spread over his face. He went faster and faster until his last step was more like a jump. Jared suddenly realized that he had made it to the bottom. His legs were still a bit shaky as he gave Andrea a high five, but Jared knew exactly what his first words would be now that he had made it down. So, turning our attention to question 1 of the 6 for this passage. The first question reads, Claire wants to strengthen the focus of her story. Which of the following is the best replacement for sentence 10? So, we go back to the passage. I don't even remember what passage 10 was, but I'm going to mark it. Oh, I've already done that. So I go back to it, and I'm going to focus my attention not just on the sentence 10, because we're looking at the best way to replace sentence 10, but we're going to focus on that whole paragraph that includes sentence 10. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to read quietly now. You do the same. It's that second paragraph starting with sentence 7 all the way to sentence 10. I'm going to read that quietly now so I can be thinking about the best way to replace sentence 10 before I even look at the options. Okay, I see what they're saying here. This flow is kind of funny. If I read sentence 10, Jared wanted to do it, and it was to repel. Okay, before this, you may have not known what repelling meant, but the sentence, Jared wanted to do it, and it was to repel, is not the best flowing sentence. So I go back to question 1, and I read A. Being at camp had been a wonderful experience for Jared and the other kids. Well, it says Claire wants to strengthen the focus of her story. What's the best way to replace sentence 10? Sentence 10 right now is not really about, or the paragraph even, it's not really about camp being a wonderful experience. So that doesn't feel right. He's talking about, in this paragraph, he's talking about looking at the tall cliff. He'd seen other campers rappelling. It looked cool. He wanted to do it. He wanted to rappel. Seems a little random to mention being at camp had been a wonderful experience for Jared and the other kids. Looks like Star's trying to trick you. So not A, thinking no. So I might mark that wrong. I would mark that wrong with an X, and I would put some notes like I've already done. So I'm not going to do it again. But just so you know, I've done the work. It's happened. It has happened. So I go down to B. Jared was sometimes a little afraid to do things he had never done before. Well, maybe, but he hasn't even mentioned that he's scared. Maybe B. C, today was Jared's last chance to overcome his fear and give rappelling a try. Well, he did mention in the story, now or never, because as I was paying attention, this is his last day. So he might not ever get another chance. So more than B, it seems to me like C is a stronger fit. Today was Jared's last chance to overcome his fear and give rappelling a try. That seems like a strong fit. Let's see what D says. Even though the others had been rappelling down the side of the cliff, Jared didn't want to? No, that doesn't make any sense. He clearly wants to. He's excited, nervous about it, but definitely excited. It cannot be D. The best choice between C and B, because A was a little random. They're trying to trick you. Being at camp had been a wonderful experience for Jared and the other kids. Well, maybe. But that whole paragraph is not about, yay, it's been a great time. This whole paragraph is about looking down the cliff, eyeing it. It looks cool. That's how I know. That part of it tells me if he thinks it looks cool, it doesn't make sense for D to say Jared didn't want to rappel. Yes, he did. So it can't be D. It can't be A. A is too obvious. C feels much better than B. And option C fits that paragraph better. Today was Jared's last chance to overcome his fear and give rappelling a try. It sounds a lot better than the original. Jared wanted to do it, and it was to repel. Number 2. Question number 2. The meaning of sentence 12 is unclear. What change can Claire make to improve the clarity of this sentence? So this one's all about making it sound more clear. Don't even try and solve this one without looking back. Every time it tells you this sentence, that sentence, go back. Don't be lazy. Practice this. It's not a test of memorization. This is a test of, do you have the grit, the determination to go back and do the work? So I'm going to go back. I'm going to show y'all. I'm going to do the work. I'm going back to sentence 12 and thinking about how could this be clearer? Before I even look at the answer choices, let me use what I already know. Maybe there'll be a word I stick on and I think more about. So sentence 12. He was at the top of the cliff with him, saying something about how strong the rope was. Oh, I remember reading this and kind of pausing or like slowing down because it didn't feel quite right. But this sentence doesn't make as much sense just reading it alone. So I'm going to read that whole paragraph silently to myself and see if maybe that'll help me better understand what's not clear in sentence 12. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so there's clearly a guy up at the top of the cliff. After I've read it now, I know Andrea's at the bottom. Andrea's his counselor. But it looks like they're saying him, he, and... Oh, it looks like... No, Jared is our guy. So there's a third person here. There's Andrea at the bottom. Jared is rappelling down this cliff. But he's saying someone's at the top of the cliff with him. So Jared is saying he's at the top of the cliff with him. This him is not the same as Jared, the guy doing the cliff rappelling. So we got to figure out who the him is. That part feels just weird. So I go back to number 2. Would I change he to another counselor? Maybe it could make sense that there's another counselor up there. There's already Andrea at the bottom. She's a counselor. Let me change Cliff to Spot and see how that sounds. I go back to 12. He was at the top of the spot with him. Well, it does make it more clear. I think Cliff and Spot, I think Cliff is a lot more clear than Spot. Spot could be anywhere. You could find a spot in my living room. You're not going to find a cliff just anywhere. You're going to find it at the top. So I think G is out. That's too obvious. Change him to them. Let's see. Go back to 12. He was at the top of the cliff with them, saying something about how strong the rope was. No, I'm pretty sure there's just one person up there. I don't need to change it to them. That stands for multiple people. Change the rope to it. Would that make it more clear? Let me go back. He was at the top of the cliff with him saying something about how strong it was. I don't know if changing it to it makes it more clear. I like it as specific as it is. The rope was. I don't think you need to make that less clear by changing it to it. I think the best answer is going to be changing he to another counselor, option F for number 2. So let me read it with the change being made. I go back. Notice how I've gone back 4 times now for one question. I don't care. My goal is to get it right, not to save my arms from getting tired. So I go back to sentence 12, replacing he with another counselor. So I go back to sentence 12. Another counselor at the top of the another counselor at the top of the cliff with him. Oh, did I do that wrong? Change he to another counselor. Let me make sure. Another counselor was at the top of the cliff with him, saying something about how strong the rope was. Oh, that makes sense. Another counselor was at the top of the cliff with Jared, saying something about how strong the rope was. The reason he's saying something about how strong the rope was is because Jared's nervous. So, yeah, it's definitely F. Definitely F. It's the best choice. Everything else doesn't make it more clear, which the question's asking, making it more clear. Number 3, which of these sentences can best follow and support sentence 15? Gotta go to sentence 15. Ooh, this is a paragraph one. If I'm trying to figure out which sentence could best follow and support sentence 15, it is not enough to look at just sentence 15. I've got to look at that whole paragraph again. So I'm going to read that paragraph aloud this time, and then I'll be thinking, which of these could best follow sentence 15? Starting with sentence 11, top of the page. Now Jared was hooked up to a rope by a complicated mass of straps. He was at the top of the cliff with him, saying something about how strong the rope was. He explained that Jared didn't need to be afraid because the rope straps would hold an elephant. Nice to know, Jared said. At the bottom of the cliff, Andrea was also connected to the rope. Could I best follow sentence 15, with A, she would help keep the rope tight and make sure Jared was safe coming down? Maybe. Doesn't sound bad, flows nicely. It does help to explain why Andrea's at the bottom. So that sounds like a reasonable choice. I'll put a question mark by it and put like the words reasonable. I think on mine I put maybe could best support sentence 15. Option B, could I follow it up with Andrea had been such a good friend and looking down at her right now made Jared think of all the fun they had had. I don't know that Jared is thinking anything fun right now. He's nervous at the top of a cliff about to rappel down. It doesn't feel like a good fit. It actually reminds me of option A, on number 1 where it says, being at camp had been a wonderful experience for Jared and the other kids. Like, they're throwing it in there because it sounds good, but is that the best way to follow sentence 15? I don't think so. So I don't think B. Option C, Jared was feeling great and stepped back from the cliff to look around at all the beautiful scenery. Last time I was nervous, I didn't stop to look around at any of the beautiful scenery. Use your gut, use your common sense. C is out. You're not going to do that when you're nervous at the top of the cliff, telling yourself, now or never, I got to go down the cliff. Option D, Andrea was right there, connected to the rope that Jared was connected to at the bottom of the cliff. One thing I really don't like about option D, it's repetitive. Good writing should not be repetitive, not in one sentence. Listen to it again. Andrea was right there, connected to the rope that Jared was connected to at the bottom of the cliff. If it could be written better, it's not going to be the best one, period. The best choice is A. She would help keep the rope tight and make sure Jared was safe coming down. It's the best one because it supports what happened earlier in the paragraph, all about how he'd be safe and Andrea was at the bottom, connected with a rope. It makes the most sense. Let's go to question 4. Question 4 reads, what is the most effective way to combine sentences 24 and 25? This one I'll go and look at just 24 and 25. Going to sentence 24. He made his way steadily down. A grin began to spread over his face. Okay. Now, I'm going to think right now, if every sentence here has a subject or predicate. When I think about combining sentences, I want to make sure both have subjects and predicates already. So I go back to 24. He made his way steadily down. Yeah, that could be a full sentence. Who's the subject? He. What did he do? He made his way steadily down. That's your predicate. Everything after the verb is the predicate. If I go to sentence 25, a grin began to spread over his face. The subject is a grin, I believe, here. And what did it do? It began to spread over his face. So that we've got 2 complete sentences, but I'm trying to combine them anyway. So I'm going to go back to sentence 4, or question 4. What is the most effective way to combine sentences 24 and 25? Is it F? Since he made his way steadily down with a grin, it began to spread over his face. Since is kind of fancy. Since means sort of like a lot like because. So it's really saying here, because he made his way steadily down with a grin, it began to spread over his face. If that doesn't make sense to you, then it's not a good choice. The reason, let me try and think how to say this. It's saying, since he made his way steadily down with a grin, it began to spread over his face. It doesn't make sense that since he went down with a grin, it began to spread. That's not why his grin began to spread. Let's go to G. He made his way steadily down because a grin began to spread over his face. He didn't make his way down because he was grinning. He grinned because he was proud of himself for making it down. So you can't say he made his way steadily down because a grin began to spread over his face. That doesn't make any sense. How about H? As he made his way steadily down, a grin began to spread over his face. So far I like this one. It's not saying he's grinning because he made his way steadily down, or because he was going steadily down, he grinned. This one, H, is saying, as he went down the cliff, a grin began to spread over his face, which kind of makes sense because he was nervous before. Now he's proud of himself. He just rappelled down a cliff, which he was nervous about. Now or never. Never going to happen if he doesn't do it now. H I like, but I'm just going to put a note by it. Like, I like it. I have to consider every option. I care about getting everyone right. I'm not going to get excited and just pick H because it sounds good to me now. J. He made his way steadily down. A grin began to spread over his face. There's no pause there. He made his way steadily down. A grin began to spread over his face. I like H the best. J kind of needs a pause. It's very close to H. But if I know where my commas are, I know to take a little brief pause there. And J just doesn't sound the way a proper sentence should. J says he made his way steadily down. A grin spread over his face. There's no pause. H makes the most sense for number 4. As he made his way steadily down the cliff, a grin began to spread over his face. It makes the most sense, and it's got the best flow. Before we go to number 5 or 6, I want to show you Fergie. Come here, Fergie. Come here, baby. Who's my baby? Come here, baby. I told the kiddos I would show you off. Oh, okay. I got you. I got you. This is Fergie Lynch. Oh, she's mad at me because it's her downtime. I'm happy to be here. She learned all this English from me. She hasn't learned to talk yet. Okay, baby, put you down. Now, number 5. Claire forgot to include an important detail in the last paragraph, sentences 16 through 29. So in case you forgot what paragraph gives you the sentences. So the detail she forgot was, with trembling legs, he took his first step. Reread the paragraph carefully. Where is the best place to insert this sentence? And it says you could insert it after, or insert means put in. You could put in this sentence after sentence 19, after sentence 20, after sentence 21, or after sentence 26. Now the detail again is, with trembling legs, he took his first step. To me, number 4 and 5 of this passage were very challenging. Number 1 was also challenging, but number 5 in particular, because it took a lot of work and a lot of thinking. So if I go in, I'm thinking, with trembling legs, he took his first step. I'm going to read that paragraph one more time, the last one. Ooh, that's a lot of sentences, but I'm going to do it because it's worth it. But I'm going to read this one in my head. So you guys do the same. We're going to read that last paragraph in our head. Okay, something to note. This detail we're adding, it says, with trembling legs, he took his first step. By sentence 21, he's clearly stepping because it says, step, step, step. His feet took turns creeping down the side of the cliff. That means if in sentence 21 he is step, step, stepping, he could not possibly be taking his first step with this detail. With trembling legs, he took his first step. You obviously do your first step before you do others. So no matter what, I can rule out 2. The 2 options I can rule out are option C and D. Because option C says insert this after sentence 21. No way is Jared going to have his first step after he's been stepping. So it can't be C and it can't be D. It's just way too late for him to have his first step. So I'm going to knock those out, and I put a little note to the side. Too soon. Too soon, Jared. Too soon. So I now got to figure out, should it go after sentence 19 or after sentence 20? Well, let's see. I'm going to try that. I'm going to read sentence 19, and then I'm going to input this part, with trembling legs, he took his first step. So I got back to sentence 19. He felt the strong, straight rope in his hands. With trembling legs, he took his first step. Jared gripped it tightly. Ooh. If I put the sentence about with trembling legs, he took his first step, it doesn't make sense to put it right after sentence 19 because then it becomes confusing about what Jared's gripping. So I'll read it with all of it. He felt the strong, straight rope in his hands. With trembling legs, he took his first step. Jared gripped it. Now I'm wondering, what is Jared gripping? Because I don't think that sentence belongs there because it messes up what the story is trying to tell us. So let me see. I believe it's probably B because I've ruled out for good reason C and D. I've ruled out for good reason A. It messes with the whole meaning of the story. You can't figure out what he's trying to grab if you put this new detail in the middle of it. So let me see how it sounds if I put it right after sentence 20. So I'll start with sentence 19 just to save a little time. He felt the strong, straight rope in his hands. Jared gripped it tightly and leaned out as far as he could stretch. With trembling legs, he took his first step. Step, step, step. His feet took turns creeping down the side of the cliff. He was doing it. That is flow. We're going to leave it as B for number 5. It makes the most sense. And last but not least, before checking, because we're never done on this test, we are never done. We are done in checking our work, going back to make sure our strategies make sense, not just that we circled something, but that it's correct. So to really check, you're going to redo all of these after we get through. So let's go to number 6. Claire's paper ends abruptly. That means quickly, suddenly. Claire's paper ends abruptly and leaves the reader wondering what happens next. Which sentence should Claire add to the end of her paper? Oh, I felt this when I read it. So I'll read you that last little bit again so you can remember. But sentence 6 is saying it ends abruptly, all of a sudden, very quickly. So if I read the ending, starting with sentence 28, his legs were still a bit shaky as he gave Andrea a high five, but Jared knew exactly what his first words would be now that he had made it down. Come on, guys. I tell you all the time, when you're a writer, you have to think about the reader. This writer just told this reader, but Jared knew exactly what his first words would be now that he had made it. Wait, let me read it again. But Jared knew exactly what his first words would be now that he had made it down. Well, the reader's wondering, hello, what words? What words would they be? Could it be F, he made it down and actually repelled? Maybe. I mean, that's what happened. Question mark. Maybe. G, where's my snack? He asked the counselors. Okay, some of y'all do this out of nowhere, but it is actually very random at the end of rappelling down a cliff to suddenly say, where's my snack? He's not over his enthusiasm from going down the cliff. It's not the right time. It's not expected to say, where's my snack? If you pick G, you were being very careless and not honoring time and place, because this is something someone who's silly might pick, or someone not paying attention. If I go to H, he didn't have a doubt about what he wanted to say. I have a doubt about what he wanted to say because I have no idea what he wanted to say because he left the reader hanging. I don't know about this. What about, can I do it again? He shouted with excitement. One thing I like about that, it ends with a sense of finality. All concluding paragraphs, all concluding sentences should end with a sense of this is over. Shouldn't start a new question, where's my snack? It shouldn't say something that leaves the reader hanging like H. He didn't have a doubt about what he wanted to say. Yes, he did. We have no idea what he wanted to say. I can infer that he meant to say like something great about what he did. I know before he was saying now or never, and if you missed that, he's talking about now or never. It's my time to repel. If I'm not going to do it today on this last day of counseling, or this last day on the trip with my counselors, I'm not going to do it. Now or never. So it makes the most sense for him to say, can I do it again? He shouted with excitement, because he's gone from all this fear, all this workup. He's been caught up wanting to do this, rappelling down a cliff for however long this trip has been. He's been nervous about it, so nervous that he was not taking a look around the cliff at a time when he was about to go down. His legs are trembling. He's gone from nervous to having owned this cliff. It does make the most sense that it would be J. To conclude this well, can I do it again? He shouted with excitement. His mood has finally changed, okay? It's just a good ending. So yeah, that was the review of the third benchmark, the first passage titled Now or Never. So hope you enjoyed it. One more word from Fergie. Come here, Fergie. Keep watching our videos to see a close look at Big Red. They will be frequent guests. So thank you for watching and learning and growing your brain. Bye-bye. Star test, March 28th. Okay.